I would only mention one case that is underway today, which seems to me to be an example of the way in which the effort to use religious defamation is taking place, and that is the well-known Geert Wilders case. Mr. Wilders is a Dutch politician. He has produced a film called Fitna. I haven't seen the film, but I understand that it intersperses verses from the Quran with scenes of Islamic violence, and it is meant to defame Islam. Mr. Wilders has gotten a great deal of attention as a result of this film. He is threatened with prosecution in the Netherlands and in France. He has been banned from visiting the United Kingdom. These kinds of cases are likely to take place with greater and greater frequency. They seem to me to transform those who engage in this kind of activity into a form of martyr, a martyr to the cause of free expression. We don't want such martyrs, and I don't think it's a good idea for the authorities to try to deal with such a matter in this way. Now, coming back to the question of hate speech, I said that I thought there are, or I think there are, limited circumstances in which it is permissible to publish to punish hate speech, and the key word there is circumstances. It doesn't seem to me that content is the critical issue. It is the question of whether violence will take place so imminently that there is no opportunity to deal with the matter in another way by offering, for example, contrary views. I think everyone is familiar with the line from an American Supreme Court decision that even the most stringent protection of freedom of speech would not protect the person who shouts fire falsely in a crowded theater. The important word in that sentence relates to the circumstances. That is, the theater was crowded. And when the theater is crowded, it means that if the person shouts fire falsely and everybody tries to get out of the theater at once, there is likely to be a stampede and people are going to be injured or killed. But what if the person shouts fire falsely in an empty theater or a theater that is almost empty? In those circumstances, there isn't going to be a stampede. People can get out of the theater calmly and quietly, or somebody could say there is no fire and no violence will take place. So the circumstance of being crowded is the critical question as to whether violence will take place. If you think of somebody who is engaged in hate speech in front of a mob, and in front of a mob, the person says, there's a Muslim, let's go get him. Or there's a Jew, let's go get him. And then the speaker himself doesn't take part in any violence. It's only the other people who are listening who take part in violence. The speaker could also be prosecuted for violence, because in that circumstance, the person who is engaged in hate speech is not only inciting violence, but is inciting violence in circumstances where the violence is imminent. It's not as though somebody can get up at that moment and give a rational discourse to explain why one should not follow the incitement of the speaker. This question of circumstance, and again, I'm speaking with my American background, has been critical in determining when hate speech can be punished. Many years ago, I was engaged in my tenure as director of the American Civil Liberties Union in defending the right of a group of American Nazis to march in a town called Skokie, Illinois. The case took place more than 30 years ago. It was 1977, 1978, but some people still remember the case, or the case is still known by some people who weren't around or weren't old enough at that time to focus on that case. It didn't set any significant legal precedent, but it is referred to a lot because it seems to exemplify a kind of American permissiveness with respect to hate speech. But it was a circumstance in which no one was going to do what the Nazis were promoting. The Nazis wanted to march in a town which had a large number of Holocaust survivors. It was insulting to the Holocaust survivors, but none of them was going to do what the Nazis urged. If anything, the danger was to the Nazis. They might be attacked by the people who were listening to them. It was equivalent to what takes place in the provocation of religious defamation. But since the event was known long in advance, it was perfectly possible for police to be there in sufficient numbers for any violence to be prevented. And of course, the entire episode passed and no violence, in fact, took place. But it did uphold the idea of free speech, and it is used by many persons till today as a reference point in thinking about what may be permitted. The approach that incitement can only be punished if the circumstances are such that violence will be imminent has basically been the law for a very long time in the United States. This is a line or a couple of sentences from a Supreme Court decision more than 80 years ago, written by Justice Louis Brandeis. He wrote, "No danger flowing from speech can be deemed clear and present unless the evil apprehended is so imminent that it may befall before there is opportunity for full discussion. If there be time to expose through discussion the falsehoods and fallacies, to avert the evils by the processes of education, the remedy to be applied is more speech, not enforced silence." And the remedy of more speech rather than enforced silence seems to me the preferred remedy of those who believe in freedom of speech. Now, having had that point of view shaped by my own experiences in the United States, I admit to having been shaken by the events that took place in Bosnia.